wanted to show you how to make this Christmas ball today. And it's really easy to construct, a little time consuming to cut out all the circles. But you really need literally nothing bought from a store to create it. I made this one out of the box that our greeting cards came in this year. And the ones that are also featured in the photographs on my blog of the tree that's in my studio, they were created out of a treasure trove of correspondence that my sister found at my great aunt's house. And they were greeting cards and letters back and forth dating from World War II and the 1940s and 1950s. And we were so excited about finding them, and especially the little messages, that we wanted to keep them. But if you keep items like that, you tend to just shove them in a drawer somewhere and you don't really enjoy them and you forget about them. And so I decided to make these Christmas balls. That way, at least once a year, they get pulled out, and for a short period of time, we get to enjoy them. And I wanted to show you how to construct them. Like you said, they're really easy to make, a little time consuming to cut out. I'm not in my studio today, so I ended up using just scissors and traced around a water glass to make my circles. Fiskars makes what they call an extra large easy punch. Makes cutting out the circles a breeze. It doesn't work very well on the heavier cardstock. So you might end up having to cut those out with scissors if you're using heavier stock. If you're making a lot of these, it is much easier to use thinner stock. I found out the hard way. A lot of my cards, are the ones on the vintage tree, are heavier cardstock, and your fingers get tired of folding. And what I ended up doing is constructing them over a whole year, put them away in a box, and every week or so I would work on them until I got tired of working on them. And that's how I got enough to do the entire tree in my studio. But you want to start off with tracing your circles. You need 20 circles to make this. Cut the circles out. Then you need to fold the circles into a triangle, an equilateral triangle, each side the same. Easiest way I found to do that was to cut a circle out of a thinner piece of paper, make a template, mark the center of that circle. Now, what I did for the thinner stock of the other tree, the thinner stock that I used to create the balls for the other tree, I created a template with a hole at the center so that I could then mark the center on each single page, making it easier to fold them. So you're going to fold the edge of the circle to the center, increase the stock. Go from the edge here and fold into the center again. crease the edge and fold over Now, if you're doing thinner stock, you can mark the back side and fold the edges over the other direction for your finished product. Or since I am using heavier stock, which then is very difficult to bend, I made a template out of that triangle. I cut a heavy cardstock triangle. Placed it on the tops of my circles. Used a pencil. Marked the edges. Used a plastic ruler then. And folded back the edges. Now, even over time, your fingers get a little sore from bending all the edges depending on how many you make. So what I found made it easier was holding the ruler at the edge and folding it in. Just like that. Now I folded 20 of them yesterday so that they were ready. I lay mine out so that I have all of them to choose from. I included a time-lapse photography of just some ideas on how to decorate and paint some of the circles. You could use your children's drawings from school packaging. I have saved some of the prettiest packaging from tea boxes from Asia and England. I just keep them in a box until I, decide what to do with them. And when I had this project, I opened the box up and there was just so many pretty, different pieces of paper that I also added those to the vintage cards that are on the tree in my studio. So you have your 20 pieces out. I like to never put any two alike together, and so I just start grabbing. You'll need to have a glue stick and a really sticky glue stick. Some glue sticks you can reposition. You don't want to reposition this. You want it to grab quickly. so it'll hold it all together. If you need to, for a little drying time, to hold them, binder clips work really well. But you start off by matching up 5 to make the top and 5 to make the bottom. I used a lot of glue. This was really sticky glue. It was fabulous. Set that aside, let it dry. 5 more. For the bottom. Sometimes you'll find, especially with this heavier paper, the edges don't get folded down perfectly, and your triangle isn't exactly perfect. Don't worry, that's where the binder clips come in. Having a little difficulty right now getting these to stick because my triangles were a little off. But in the end, when it all goes together, you're never gonna notice. Now, the one thing I did find that when you're matching these up, make sure your inside matches up, not necessarily the outside edge. Because sometimes you cut the circles crooked, and or like I said, they don't get folded properly. So if you're matching the outside, the construction of the inside is off, and that's where you'll see more imperfections with the construction of the entire ball. Now the sides, so you have the top and the bottom. Now the rest of these all go together. There are 10 of them. These get put together with triangle right side up to triangle right side down. And you're just gonna go back and forth until they're all together. Right side up, right side down. It will end up forming a rectilinear piece, a line, which will be the side of your ball. If you need to, you can construct in sections, allowing it to dry. Ah, I put two alike together. That's not good. Glad I caught that. Although really, when they're all together, they look so beautiful that even if you put two sides that were alike together, you'd never notice it in the end. I have used other glues other than glue sticks before. The drying time ends up being much longer, and you do need a lot of binder clips, but either way, they turn out just as pretty. If you're working with children with this, binder clips are probably a really great idea. Because even now my fingers are getting pretty sticky from the glue stick, and just from working with little kids in the past with glue, it can get a little crazy. I suppose you could use hot glue. I'm not sure that how the edges would go together though. I mean, you'd have to be really careful to get it on really thin, because of course you wouldn't be able to squeeze the edges without burning yourself. Still, in the end, I think that the glue stick is your best bet. You get the top and bottom ready. Take your two sides, finish off your circle. I wish I had more binder clips with me here today. It's nice having all the tools from your studio, but it really is easy to be creative practically anywhere you are. When I haven't taken tools with me on a trip, sometimes I just make a quick stop at a Daiso or like a dollar store and grab a pair of scissors and some binder clips and some pencils and erasers and a journal, and gives me enough to work with for a few days. If I have ideas that I can't create at the time, I can at least sketch and take those ideas back to the studio to create later. And there you go. I used the ribbon from the boxes and hot glued them to the top to hang it. The first one I made, like I mentioned before, sometimes your triangles are not equal on each side, and I found that it kept popping apart in a few areas, and so I used just a tiny bit of thread and stitch a little button stitch around to hold this one together. It does add a really pretty finishing touch to the ball. Not necessary at all. If you if you just take the binder clips and your glue and leave them until the glue is completely dried, you won't have it popping apart at all. Glad I was able to show you this today. I hope you have good success with yours and you enjoy the process. Have a happy holiday. Bye.